How do you spend the bye week? Like, what's the self-scout look like for you? And you find anything that you feel like might be helpful?
Yeah, I went. The self-scout thing to me, like you watch the game each week, right? And then you go back through and you kind of get an idea of what you've done as you're going into your next game, because it's always trying to, what is our opponent seeing? But it gave you a chance to just go back from the beginning and watch it more in like chronological order, each phase. And so able to find, a couple things. It was interesting when you take a look, like, from a number standpoint, this is the first time I'll go look at like the stats, okay, like exactly where are we and that sort of thing, so that it's not a judge view of my opinion, it's actually like what the numbers say. And so when you go back and you look and you're like, all right, well, the numbers aren't great in our coverage units, the punt and the kickoff stuff, and then you go back and you say, okay, why? And obviously you go back to, we had a poor game early in the season, and you can never take away one play, for example, but it's actually encouraging that we've improved. And when you look at it, and so, for example, like if you take the punt return against Seattle away for a touchdown, that puts your net up above 42, and it puts you like the average return you're giving up is like 7 yards. And those are kind of like what your season's goal is. So you can't eliminate it, right? It does exist, but at least it's encouraging that we've shown that we've improved, and guys are really starting to understand what we want to do. And then you go back and you say, okay, well, what can we look at and what are some other things we need to improve on? And I think two of the things that stood out to me were we had a couple too many missed tackles that allows more yardage than should be. And so instead of giving up a return, like even in the Carolina game, like we should have him tackled at the 28-yard line. And all of a sudden you miss a tackle, and now he's at the 34, and those start adding up. So we need to tackle better. We need to eliminate the penalties in the return game. We've had a couple that are effort penalties, a face mask here or something that happens. Like those are going to happen, but some of the holding penalties in the return game, negate a good return. Or now instead of, even if it's on a fair catch, for example, and the ball being on the 30-yard, you're backed up 10 yards, now you're on the 20. So if we can improve our tackling and eliminate the penalties going forward and continue to make the improvements we've made in the coverage units, I think, we'll be happy of the improvement we continue to make.
I feel like you just answered 90% of this, but I was going to ask you, like, it seems like you've kind of like really settled the waters, gotten it real tight, like the last. Is there a change from like the beginning, or was it just kind of like sticking with it and kind of just cleaning it up as it goes?
I don't know that there's been much schematical change in what we've done. I think it's a combination of there's been some different players who are doing it, and then there's been the same players, but they now have an understanding because, there's some younger guys that really hadn't done it at this level before. And so I've been pleased with how we're working. I think, like I said, I'll go back to the Seattle game because that was a wake-up call, I think, for some guys that didn't understand, and it really changed how we go out and we practice every single day as well, like the emphasis and how every little detail matters. So I think those have been the biggest reasons why.
Like Pettis is returning.
Look, he has... One, he's a natural catcher. I feel good about the way he's able to track the ball and he's able to catch it on a punt return standpoint, right? And then two, even when he filled in last year for us after Sheet had gotten hurt, I mean, he averaged, I think it was like 11 yards per punt return, which was really good. He had, one should have had a chance for a touchdown where he just steps out of bounds there. He has the ability to see things and it developed for him. And I think that goes back to the cumulative reps. I mean, he was outstanding in college, and I remember, when I was at Penn State, we actually played Washington in the Fiesta Bowl, and he was the returner. And I remember, for a couple of weeks thinking to myself, golly, this is like the all-time touchdown guy. And we got to, my first game as coordinator was that game, and you have to go defend him. And fortunately, we were able to kick all fair catches. He didn't get a chance.
Do you have any thoughts on Jaquan Jackson and just his returnability? Like, is he someone that you've been scouting coming in or anything like that?
He's someone, I don't have a strong feeling, good or bad. It's unknown. I remember he was back here at a workout at one point, and I thought he did a good job of catching the ball. And, he just getting here, I haven't had a chance to really sit down and spend much time with him or go back through him to refresh my memory of what he's done. But I'm always a fan. The more returners you can get in the building, as you kind of need them all, the way things happen in this league. You have an opinion on?
I mean, you made a lot of plays in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's biased. He was an employee in Germany.
He did a podcast with us.
I understand. No, but not yet. But I will. I'll get a chance to go rewatch some of all that sort of stuff. And he's getting his feet wet now. But the more returns we can have in the building, the better off.
Is there anything behind Blake kind of riding the ship? It's made 7 out of his last 8, the one missed game. Not trying to set you up or anything.
No, you know what? Honestly, I don't. I just think he went through a little bit of a rough patch, you know, and it's one of those things. I think all players go through it at different positions, and obviously in the specialist position, it's just magnified, you know, because of the limited opportunities. I mean, when you go out there, you have to go perform. But it wasn't anything like, and I know, you know, it was practice, but it wasn't like anything that was showing up where there were a lot of misses in practice. He just went into the games, and he had a couple that missed here or there. And, you know, we believe in him, and I want to continue to stick by him because I do believe that he has a really, really bright future. I think he's excellent at what he does. And, you know, I think the way you just look, and I look at like some other positions, for example, there's players in this league that are on other teams right now that are really performing well, and maybe, you know, people had given up on them too soon, and, you know, nothing more sticks out. You go look at a couple of quarterbacks that are playing really good football right now, and I know they're different positions, but, you know, a guy like Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield, like they had some rough patches, but there were people, you know, that believed in him, and maybe it had to be at a different place, and now it's coming and showing there. So I do think one of the things as a coach, if you know, you truly believe in somebody because you know the work ethic, you see what they do, and you're willing to just, you know, ride it out with them because you feel that they're going to do well in the end.
I never really thought about it before until you were talking about it, but like how much does like continuity and communication and chemistry like play a factor in just like getting like peak performance out of it? And how do you deal with it like when there are moving parts and like someone's moving off special teams, someone's moving on, and that stuff?
Yeah, listen, that's part of all the special teams coaches' jobs, right? I mean, there is a lot of moving parts, and that may be for whatever reason of injury or trade or guys getting released or guys aren't doing well enough on offense and defense, and now another guy's active on game day. And so I think that's part of the puzzle that we have to, you know, put together. And, you know, when you go into a game, you know, you have who's active on that 48, and it may be different each week, and trying to piece it together. And the more continuity we can have, and we've had a little bit more, I also think helps our success, and why you know, you have the same guys in there in punt protection. You have two guys that are working next to each other all the time instead of a different guy every other week. It's kind of like an O-line that when they work together and have to pass off pass rush twists or stuff like that. It's, you know, there's some things that come in the special teams as well.
What are your thoughts on we haven't talked to you since the Panthers game, the block with the, you know, like, how do you assess that with Bam, obviously?
Yeah, look, it's a shame. It's, you know, I assess it as we really got unlucky. You know, it's like you have a game-changing momentum play. You don't let them tie the game. You get a great block, and now all of a sudden it's their ball, first and goal, or first and 10 over. And it's a challenging situation, right? Because, and we cover it, we watch him every week, and like I said, like Cam knew the rule, he just lost sight of where he was, right? So, but the thing a lot of people may not know, right, is if the ball's blocked and it goes behind the line of scrimmage, both teams can advance it. Like the defense can scoop and score and go for a touchdown. If the offense picks it up behind the line of scrimmage, they can go run for a first down. And then if it goes over the line of scrimmage clearly, right, obviously then the defense can pick it up, but if they fumble it or muff it, and an offense gets on it, it becomes their ball. But it's kind of like the no risk reward deal there. When it goes over the line of scrimmage, clearly it's pretty easy. Hey, we'll make a poison call, get away from it. We know we're going to get the ball at the block spot, you know. And then it's that gray area. If it, like, all of a sudden, if the ball would have been a foot behind, and now Carolina's own lineman picks it up and he's able to, if it was 4th and 1, go forward for a first down. It's a challenging spot for those guys right there, like what to do. And so he lost track of exactly where he was. But it was a good play by Shep. You know, that's kind of thing that got overshadowed a little bit. And it was, again, just an outstanding effort. I think I talked to you guys before just about how proud I am when you watch our field goal block unit. You know, we've gotten 2 so far this year, but just the effort and the disruption those guys